This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, this meeting is being recorded. Welcome into the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast. We've reached episode 43, the Troy Polamalu edition of the episode. It's September 29th, 2022. Going to be recapping week 4 of the college football, week 3 of the NFL, and then giving a preview of the upcoming weeks. Ethan was way off on his Michigan State, Minnesota prediction. Iowa took care of Rutgers. Michigan struggled early, but they ended up being able to take care of Maryland. NDSU overcame a sloppy first half where they were actually down for the second straight week to start the first half. But we'll start here with the Gophers. And Ethan, what were you thinking with your prediction that the fact that Michigan State was going to actually score 17 points?
I know. I honestly thought I didn't give Minnesota's defense enough credit. I mean, I didn't know who I was watching. If you take out the jerseys, I'm pretty sure they're playing New Mexico State again. That's exactly what it looked like. Like Michigan State was awful. They made Iowa's offense look great.
And that's saying something.
But no, actually though, that was probably like my favorite Gopher game ever. Like whenever has Minnesota gone onto the road of the Big Ten and actually just beat the living shit out of a team? And honestly, it wasn't even close. 34-7 doesn't even feel right. It feels like it should have been like 50-0. Like that's just suffocating defense. They held them under 250 yards again. I don't think they've allowed over 250 yards all season to any team this year, which is kind of crazy to think about. Offense was good, even without Crab. Wide receivers stepped up. Span Ford, tight end, got a lot more looks. They got him on a lot of crossers against linebackers. Huge mismatch. Dude, 6'7", runs like a wide receiver, thoroughbred. So cool to see that.
Which I said they should do last week.
Yes, you did. Mo Ibrahim was good, wasn't great. 103 yards. That's all he needed. Had a touchdown, set the all-time school record for touchdowns. So congrats to Mo. You know, a little cheers for Mo there. But honestly, this defense is better than I ever thought. Like, they are really freaking good. So they've only allowed 3 points before the fourth quarter all year. Haven't allowed a touchdown before the fourth quarter all year. The only points they've given up were to Western Illinois. It was a field goal in the I want to say the third quarter. So they have yet to even allow points in the first half through 4 games. And they have now gone 11 straight games under 280 yards given up. So dating all the way back to 7 games last year, they were doing that. So they are humming.
Who would have been that team that got to 280 yards? Was it a Big Ten opponent? Do we know?
It had to have been. So whoever it was, they played. They went 10-3 last year, right? 9-3, 9-4.
No, 10-3 bowl win. No, hold on. It was
it 9-4 bowl win?
Ohio State. Was it Bowling Green? A bad loss to Bowling Green?
Yep, Iowa.
And did they beat Illinois or did they lose?
Iowa, they didn't have 280 yards.
Or did they lose to Illinois?
I
think they went 9-3 in the regular season because there was Iowa, Ohio State, and then what? Bowling Green.
No,
right?
Didn't they? Did they lose to Illinois?
So maybe it was 8. Maybe was it 8-4 and then a 9-4 with a bowl win?
Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah. Tanner Morgan
count back 7.
What was that?
But yeah, Tanner Morgan looks like the 2019 Tanner Morgan, which seems like, well, I guess that would have been his second freshman year at this point, where he because he's still playing because he was a sophomore in 19.
He would have been a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah,
I believe
it would have been Maryland. Was the last time they allowed more than 200 yards.
Okay.
Even when they lost to Illinois, they didn't have 280 yards. They had 265. And Maryland had, let's see here, they had 268. So they didn't get even that. Maybe it's Nebraska then.
Or it
could have been the game before that.
It could have been Nebraska. Nebraska put up.
They had 377.
Yeah, because the fun guys last year when Minnesota played Nebraska, that's when I was in Austin and we were watching Texas play Oklahoma State. You know, my buddy Logan was following the Gopher game on his phone, and Nebraska kept having turnovers or turnover on downs in the red zone. So that would make sense why they had 300. They just put it in the end zone that day.
No, and Grant, I told you I had a hot take coming into this regarding Big Ten West defenses.
Yes, you did.
I get take, I think Minnesota has a better defense than Iowa right now. I know Iowa scores points. Don't get me wrong on that, but they're almost either all or nothing, not nothing, but bend or break. They're very much, they give up yards. Like they had 300 passing yards to Rutgers last week. Rutgers had 59 passing yards versus Temple, like 2 weeks before that.
Well, and to your point, to add to your point, Ethan, that's what Iowa does. They let methodically go down the field 20-20. It's just you kind of pound your head against that concrete wall because you're so sick of getting 4 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards, getting a 3rd and 5, that when you go for something big, the Iowa secondary players are so fundamentally sound. They make a play. But over the years, they give up. They just don't give up points.
Which is
at a high level.
Holding. Go. You're saying. Go. What you're saying.
That's if you want to bang on Iowa. The one thing is they give up yards. They make teams kick field goals, or after the 8th play of the drive, you're so upset because they make you earn every single yard. You have a silly play, and then before you know it, Iowa's defensive backs, they become wide receivers, and these linebackers locking people down the field, and you score a touchdown, and you forget about the 60-yard drive you were giving up because they just turned that 60-yard drive into 6 points.
And that's where I'm starting to kind of turn, like the Gophers last year, even though they didn't give up a lot of yards, they didn't get turnovers either. So they never really had short field. This year, they're starting to do that. Last 2 games, 5 turnovers, 3 versus Michigan State. Like they only had probably 2 or 3 drives in Minnesota territory in the first place, but both of them ended in turnovers. So it's this defense is taking that next step.
And to add on to your point, with this Iowa defense over the years, since 2016, they've led the FBS in interceptions for those 6 seasons. And they turned 33% of them into touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which, and that changes games and that changes seasons.
Yeah. Because, you give Minnesota a short field with Tanner Morgan and our O-line and Ibrahim, like you're going to get 6 more than likely. Tanner's the highest graded quarterback in the country right now. Like that's insane.
Well, and remember, like I told you last week when they played Colorado, Colorado's first play of the game, corner comes off, slot blitz, sack fumble, ball on the 11-yard line, Mo runs it in the next play. Boom, 14-0. So this defense continues to turn the ball over. Then they're going to be no one wants to mess with because you have an NFL-style offensive line who's just putting people in body bags because they're all, 6'4", 310, and they're moving people. You give them a short field with the RPO game that, which is the staple of this Gophers offense with I want to get the coordinator's name right. What's his last name? Soraka.
I call him Sriracha, but
okay.
You can call him Soraka if you.
Yeah, that's just a staple. And when you get that running game going, like I said, with this NFL style offensive line the Gophers have, it's gonna be a long day at the office.
Yeah. Well, like I told you before the podcast tonight, are the Gophers the most complete team in the Big Ten? Not the best, but the least question marks through 4 weeks.
That's a great discussion point to have.
Yeah.
I'm like iffy between Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio State. I think it's close, but I think it's definitely worth a conversation.
Because to your point, most talented, but simple, it's Ohio State. Yeah. But
100%.
You look at the way all these teams play and how impressive Michigan's running game has been, how fast Minnesota's defense is playing, and what Ohio State has getting better each week on the offensive end. It's a fun discussion to have.
Well, and the biggest key too is Tanner Morgan looks like the 2019 Tanner Morgan, where he looks comfortable. He getting the ball out quick. He's efficient. He's not making the mistakes that have plagued him in the 2020, 2021 year. Yeah. And if he continues to do that, we're going to have a game in Indianapolis, whoever comes out of the East at this point. This Minnesota team, there's a legit like
this is a legit
conversation where they could they could be undefeated going into Indianapolis if they keep playing the way they do.
100%.
Because who are the teams they play out of the East?
Penn State, Maryland,
Rutgers?
or not Maryland, Penn State, Rutgers, and Michigan State.
They've already played Michigan State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
so
they play
they
22nd.
Purdue this week, Illinois, then Penn State on the 22nd.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So that could feature potentially an undefeated. That 22nd could potentially feature a one-loss Penn State and an undefeated Minnesota, or both teams undefeated. Because the week before, Penn State goes to Michigan.
Yep.
And
after they
Penn State's got a
State
gauntlet. Penn State has a gauntlet of a schedule. They've got Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State. That's going to make or break their season for sure.
I don't care who you are. I don't care if Ohio State had that 3-game schedule of Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio State back to back. Any college football team who can go 2-1 in that stretch is impressive, because you're going to have some emotionally draining weeks. And this isn't the NFL. These kids don't know how to deal with emotions for 3 straight weeks like this. Kind of like when Auburn in 2017, when they, in the words of Gus Malzahn, beat the dog shit out of Georgia. Then they beat Alabama at home. Then when they played Georgia in Atlanta in the SEC title game, they just didn't have the juice. So that's a hell of a schedule. And I would not want to play that if I was anyone on Michigan, on Penn State, especially their defensive linemen. They're going to get the piss beat out of them, because all 3 of those teams love to run the ball.
Yeah. And we'll move over, Grant, to Iowa. They took care of Rutgers. It was 27-10. The over hit at 34.
Oh, they overhit.
27-10. Total
Amazing.
was 37. So, Grant, what are you seeing out of this Iowa offense? I see they got 2 more defensive touchdowns. Mm-hmm. What have you seen some improvement at all with the Iowa offense? What did you like about Iowa this game?
So what I liked was this. I think they found that they have a nice trio of running backs: Gavin Williams, LaShawn Williams, and then Caleb Johnson, the freshman this upcoming year. And with those running backs, I think they finally figured out the kind of blocking scheme they need to have to be successful running the ball. And that is your fullback in the game, power football, man on man. We're going to try to move you at the line of scrimmage, because I've noticed this year and these last 2 years, going even back to the 2020 season, when Iowa tries to get in that zone scheme where you run an inside zone and outside zone and you have an area and not a man, that gives them trouble, because teams will slant so much across the defensive line, and Iowa's offensive linemen, they're not properly chipping these guys. Last week, 3 times their right tackle got beat because the defensive end crashed in front of him. When he took his hard step to the right, he didn't take his backside hands and at least hit his shoulder to slow him down. So it didn't give the right guard a shot to try to block this guy, and he blew the play up from there. So in Iowa, when they sit back and they get in this power game and they say, this is my guy, I have to block him and I have to move him, that's when this offense has had success. And then these last couple of weeks, you've been able to run some play action game off that, get Petras outside of the pocket, because when he's in the pocket, he's awful. He's his horrible feet. He's a statue. You hate cutting the field in half, but that's what you got to do. And then you're able to get your tight ends involved. So it was nice to see, I think, the way they're going to have to run the ball to be successful this year. They found that blocking scheme. And then last week, on the defensive line, the pass rush, just getting a Rutgers all day. Luke Van Ness had 7 QB pressures. Probably should have been called for a roughing the passer in today's world on that first interception, because he fell on top of the quarterback. But I'm glad we're playing football in the Big Ten. We didn't flag these guys for him. Joe Evans had a sack. The consistent pass rush, because that's what this defense needs, because they're going to sit back and they're going to play that zone. And like Ethan and I said earlier, they're going to let you get your yards, but they're not going to give up those chunk plays. And when they played Iowa State this year, they didn't have that pass rush. Those guys weren't able to get home. And then Iowa State was able to go on that 99-yard drive. So having 3 good running backs, having your offense go through them, a power running scheme, man-on-man scheme, and that pass rush to get home. And then, again, anytime you can have 2 defensive touchdowns, we'll take it. So it was nice to see, they made steps in that direction, because it's go time. Michigan this week, and then I'm not sure.
Illinois, right?
It's either Illinois or
Yeah,
Purdue.
Illinois, because the Gophers play them right after Wisconsin, Iowa, and then the
Illinois.
Gophers get.
And then I think they have a bye, and then they play Ohio State the 22nd. So it's go time right now, and they need to figure out what they do well, and they just need to do that. And then Torrey Taylor, what can I say? When people wear that shirt in that stadium and they say, "I came here to root for the punter," how can you not root for that guy? He's putting on a show each week.
Yeah, well, and we'll move over to the Michigan game. Michigan played Maryland. They won 34-27. Michigan struggled early. They were behind going in. Looked like they were about to lose or be down going into the first half, and then Blake Corum on a 4th and 1 broke a 30-yard run to give them the lead. And then after that, Michigan kind of took control. They were able to – when Maryland scored, they were always 2 scores behind. It never felt in the second half Michigan was ever – out of control that game. It felt like they controlled that the whole game.
At one point, I felt like in the second half, right before Tua's brother went out with the shoulder injury, whatever it was for a play or something. He left for like the end of that series. I felt they might take a lead again right there, but after that, they had no offense after that. Like I don't know if it was he was hurt, but they just did not have the mojo they had going on that drive after that the rest of the game.
Yeah, well, he came back. It was a 3rd and long, and then they try to screen, and Michigan shut it down where they covered it really well. And then he came back for another series, and they actually, I believe they scored because Michigan scored after that, and then he came in for one more series, scored, but then I think it was a back injury or something. And he couldn't go. And then the backup played okay. He led him on 2 scoring drives. But
did they really? Okay.
Yeah, and JJ probably this is where he really kind of showed some of his lack of playing. He kind of holds onto the ball a little bit too long, scrambles a little bit more than he should. Has to learn throwing the ball away isn't a bad play. Living to see another down isn't a bad play. Just the learning things you're going to go through with a young quarterback. They were led by Blake Corum, 30 rushes, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't like him having 30 carries in a Maryland game, but they are very thin at running back. Donovan Edwards is still out. We'll see if he's back against Iowa, which we'll get into later on the show. But the other part too is the defense in the first half was not able to get pressure on Maryland at all, where Tagovailoa had all sorts of time to throw, and the score reflected that. And then in the second half, they made the right adjustments. They were able to get pressure on him. They were forced 3 turnovers, and they just got to keep improving on that pass rush. And that's not going to be what they had last year. It's just not when you have 2 first-rounders. But it's going to be a collective team effort if they can keep improving, which I think they have, because I think Maryland is one of the most improved teams in the Big Ten this year. They look really good. Loxley has those guys playing well, and they've got good receivers. I think they finally have been able to develop some depth in the trenches on that offensive and defensive lines, which also showed. Upset alert is I think they're going to beat Michigan State this week.
Is that an upset?
I don't think that.
Where's that game at? Is it in College Park?
At this point, does it matter? Michigan State.
If it's in, I would think Maryland would at least be a 2.5-point favorite.
So that game is in. Oh, wow. Okay, this is not an upset. I apologize. Maryland is an 8.5-point favorite against Michigan State in College Park.
And guys, well, like we've said this year, we were all on the Michigan State overrated train, and
Tuck's coming.
And
Sucks.
Like it showed last week, they have no secondary, and they were lucky to win these games last year. They have no offense. So what makes us think they're going to go into Maryland and certainly change that in a short week after getting their ass kicked last week?
I mean, as a Gopher fan, I would love to see Michigan State win just because that makes our win at Michigan State look that much better, but I just don't. I don't see it happening. I mean, they're not good.
And Ethan, I'll say this, for the Gophers' sake this year, I don't think you have to worry anymore about, we need to beat this team and make them look good. Do this, do that. Just go out, just keep beating the hell out of people. Because
I still don't trust the Bulls.
I see what you're saying, but after a while, if you keep beating teams 34-7, 49-0, 56-0, eventually people will listen to Joel. They'll be like, "Let's go football team." Like, they're beating the hell out of people, and
it was very fun listening
just
to
like
Kirk Herbstreit. Go, sorry.
I was going to say, like Iowa in 2015, after they beat Wisconsin in that first game, and then on the road at Northwestern. You get to 7-0 in the Big Ten, and it's like people they'll respect you. They start to say, "Hey, this team's a playoff." And to Dylan's point earlier, let's say we have a Minnesota-Ohio State and Minnesota-Michigan matchup in Indy that first weekend of December. That's a college football quarterfinal game. Screw the Big Ten championship. That's a college football quarterfinal game.
Yeah.
Yep. I did enjoy Kirk Herbstreit talking about how good the Gophers looked on national television on ABC while the Badgers were getting the absolute shit stomped on by Ohio State. Though that was fun.
And anytime Wisconsin gets absolutely obliterated, it is a win, because let's not forget ourselves. People in Wisconsin only make $45,000 a year, and they work at the local creamery. They're not that.
And merch still sucks. He's still awful.
And we're getting a little bit off track here, but back to Michigan. And this, I'm not hitting the panic button yet. There's no reason to. Like we said, Maryland's a much improved team. And last year, Michigan struggled in their Big Ten opener against Rutgers, and they ended up okay as well. So maybe a little bit looking ahead to next week this week against Iowa, but we'll move over. NDSU overcame a sloppy first half. They were down 17-10. They had 3 first half turnovers. Cam Miller interception. He threw short to Zach Mathis, then 2 fumbles, and they were down 17-10 at halftime. South Dakota did a good job of capitalizing on them. But then in the second half, and you would think it would be the coaches a lot yelling, but from listening to the Matt Entz press conference, it was mostly the players that were taking accountability, which has been a staple of that program. It is a player-led program, and it showed where NDSU has said enough was enough. We're going to stop letting these guys hang around. We're going to go play Bison football for the next 30 minutes. And they ended up shutting them out in the second half. They win 34-17. I think they might have found a kicker. It's hard to say. Griffin Croso went 2 for 2 on his field goal attempts. So that's a good positive there. And Hunter Lipke continues his Walter Payton Award campaign. Still looking for a receiver to emerge. I have not seen that. I know we talked about Zach Mathis earlier, but just have not seen the consistency out of him that we most Bison fans are looking for. And the big thing with this on the defensive side of the ball is their tackling has been sloppy this year. When you think of your traditional NDSU teams, you think of them not many broken tackles, rallying to the ball. Last year, they had 150 missed tackles on defense. You know how many they've had through 4 games this year?
84.
42.
Ooh.
Which still, 84. You were way off. That's a lot, but the point still stands is that 100. They played. I guess that's 10, it was 110. I think I heard. Yeah, that sounds more like it. They missed 110 tackles all of last year. They're already up to 42 this year in 4 games, which is 10 with a couple of decimal points after.
By the end of the 12-game regular season, by the end of that, you'll already have 120 missed tackles, and that's before all the playoff games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that needs to get short up. What's up?
Are they still number 1 right now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. As long as they don't lose, they'll be number 1.
Well, and now that James Madison is in the FBS, besides really maybe South Dakota State, who else is there? Is there any other competition this year?
Montana.
Montana.
And
Just
okay.
Montana. I don't think Montana State's quite there yet.
They graduated too much.
They graduated a decent amount. Quarterback's legit, but yeah, it's at this point a 3-horse race. Maybe Sacramento State, maybe Missouri State, who SDSU played last week, and
Yeah, they beat them on the road.
South Dakota State won. They got Youngstown. They have Youngstown State this week, which is homecoming weekend, which is always going to be a big weekend. Youngstown State, that's going to be a tough game. That's always a physical game. I know they've lost to Kentucky. They're much improved. I think their coach has them headed in the right direction, but there's still a lot to work on. I'm expecting the Bison to win, but we'll move over. Recap week 3 in the NFL. Vikings, Lions. Took about the Vikings about 3.5 quarters to wake up, but they woke up at the right time. They put the Lions into hibernation and got a win. Kirk Cousins, KJ Osborne. Vikings are 2-1. Ethan, how are you feeling about the Vikings? How'd you feel about that game? Were there some tense moments there?
There were. I'm not I was high on the Vikings before the year, and it's great they're 2-1, but I think that first game versus Green Bay really set unrealistic expectations. That defense looked unbelievable, but I think it's much more Rodgers had no one to throw to. I don't think it was so much our defense was that great. We obviously have a lot of issues. Jared Goff just absolutely ripped us with pretty much no wide receivers outside of St. Brown. But I think PA said it best is that game just set way too high expectations, and now we got to just kind of bring it back down. Great, the Lions are much better. I think that's very evident that they are a lot better than what they were. But at the same time, go ahead, Grant.
Well, and I was just going to say the Lions are better, Ethan. And I had a stat about the Vikings defense this year, kind of almost like Iowa in a way. They're 30th in yards per game, but they're 10th in points.
Yeah.
But over the course of a year in the NFL season, if you were in the bottom half of yards per game, you're not going to get far as a team because it's going to catch up to you. Teams aren't going to miss a 56-yard field goal. 2, and then also, teams aren't going to have a guy like Mike Hughes just get, burnt toast with a miscommunication, and KJ is going to go into that end zone wide open.
Well, and that kick, that play should never happen, honestly. Campbell never should have kicked that 54-yard field goal. Either you go for it like you have all game, or you punt it. They'd go the length of the field in a minute 15. No, one timeout. It's not very realistic. He definitely blew that game for him and pretty much handed it to the Vikings, which didn't understand because he went for 4th down the whole game. He didn't trust his kicker, so why did he go to him in the biggest moment of the game? I don't get it.
Well, yeah, I mean that's part of still a second-year head coach, still figuring things out. I think he wanted to, which is probably something, and he talked about in his press conference how he's still kicking himself in the ass for doing it. But I think he wanted to give his kicker a shot to let him know that he still believed in him. But I think that's something you learn as a head coach, that you're just go with your gut, punt the ball or go for it, probably punt it, make them go the whole field, because their defense played well for most of the game. Yeah. And then they just had the Lions went full Lions, and Kirk Cousins, 11 o'clock shows up and looks like Tom Brady.
Well, and I think this opened Kirk's eyes a little bit too. He actually started moving the ball around in the 4th quarter, especially. He always looks at JJ. He realized he still has Thielen. He still has one of the best slot receivers in the NFL, and Osborne. He has Irv Smith, who's starting to come out pretty good the last 2 games. So he has these other weapons. You finally got Dalvin involved and actually made it an effort to make him involved. He has pieces around him. He's just got to utilize them better, I think, is what he needs to do.
Well, yeah. Well, and I'm looking here. Maybe. Yeah, they're rushing. They average 5 yards a rush. If you can average 5 yards a rush,
you had 96 yards. Yeah.
5 yards a rush, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yep.
Yeah. Detroit's not a good rushing team, defensive-wise. Good offensive-wise. They might have the best O-line in the league.
that low
Oh.
key O-line is slept on there in Detroit, but they've built it over these last couple of years, and for the most part, Jared's been pretty clean all year. So that plus.
Oh, police going
We're
by
fine.
Ethan's again.
We're fine. We're fine.
Was that ambulance or was it police?
Ambulance today. So
Oh.
if someone's just being a wuss, it's fine.
Well, and Ethan lives by hospital there, so you're gonna get that noise.
But also, I mean, I'll hate on the Vikings defense. I don't think they're the greatest yet, but at the same time, the last two lines they went against are arguably two of the best of the top 5 in the league. So like, it's not like they're going against slouches or anything either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they were without Harrison Smith. Josh Metellus played well. He dropped an interception and then he got it back to end the game.
Yeah, Jesus
Had
wanted
11
to get that
tackles.
pick a second.
Well, but then also to your point, guys, I think we got to remember this in today's NFL. September is the preseason. This team, they're still figuring out what they do well and what they don't do well. And I don't think we're really going to find out much about these NFL teams until about week 6 or week 7, because the Vikings did not play any starters in the preseason. They're just kind of feeling this out right now. So I think that's, this defensive coaching staff is still figuring out what coverages they play well, what coverages they don't play well, and how can they get pressure on the quarterback. But I think you need to look at it like this. Thank God for Eric Kendricks, because he made some plays in that fourth quarter. And you need a middle linebacker like that to have a good defense in this league.
Yeah, for sure.
But can we, who would have thought one of the biggest games going into week 4 of this year would have been Jacksonville at Philadelphia this week, though?
Right?
That's going to be a hell of a game.
A great game.
I'm 2-0 picking the Jags to cut on spreads, so I got that going. But we'll move over. Chiefs lost to the Colts. There's a lot of drama in Kansas City. You got Mahomes fighting with EB, Chris Jones talking and costing penalties that allowed the Colts to win. It feels like, Grant, a little bit of the sky is falling in Kansas City, and you got to start to ask the question: Is Pat Mahomes a coach killer? He's gotten into it multiple times with Eric Bieniemy. I'm sure behind the scenes it's very ugly, which I'm just speculating here, between him and Andy Reid. Give it a couple of years. I wouldn't be shocked if Pat Mahomes pushes Andy Reid out.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop
I think it's pretty obvious what's happening. Grant just can't see it.
Stop it.
He's in denial.
I will say this. Going into after this last Sunday, I saw a stat this weekend that quarterbacks who are in their last 10 starts, Jalen Hurts is 9-1, Tom Brady's 8-2, Aaron Rodgers is 8-2, and Patrick Mahomes is 8-2. Well, if
Tua is 9-1 as well.
Tua is 9-1. Yep, excuse me. So you go back last year, since the Chiefs got embarrassed against Tennessee. They're 8-2, and they're the 2 regular season losses was last year against Cincinnati, this year against Indianapolis, and then also their playoff loss against the Bengals. What do all 3 of those games have in common? The Chiefs do this to themselves. They're the ultimate team who they get in their own way. This last Sunday, first drive, 3-0 for the Colts. They punt. Sky Moore muffs the punt. The Colts jump on it. 7 points right there. Towards the end of the first half, the Chiefs had an opportunity to, maybe take a timeout and then go for a Hail Mary. They didn't do that. Chris Jones getting a sack on 3rd and 7. And the referee came out today and he didn't say exactly what Chris said, but Chris said something that he said was on the lines of disgusting and does not belong on a professional football field. We may never know what that is, but
which I was giving. I think Matt Ryan didn't seem to have an issue. I think it's a dumb penalty. I don't think guys should be penalized for talking, especially when it has nothing to do with the ref. Like, just spot the ball and shut up.
Yeah,
do your job.
But even then, you you do something stupid. And the worst part is you gave the referee an opportunity to throw a flag. And who knows? Maybe the NFL have told their referees this year, watch the language. If they say something stupid, throw a flag. But also, the Chiefs missed the field goal in the second half. And since they're out Harrison Butker, they also attempted a fake field goal. They missed that. Travis Kelce had an opportunity to catch a touchdown in the back of the end zone. He dropped that. This team, they just kind of keep getting in their own ways. You tell me Sunday afternoon, Jonathan Taylor is held to 71 yards rushing. Matt Ryan is sacked 5 times, has 2 fumbles. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game easily. Michael Pittman goes for 94 yards, so he doesn't have over 100 and a touchdown. So again, they kind of keep shooting themselves in the foot. And even like I said, those 2 regular season losses, Tennessee and Cincinnati. It's like, again, not Tennessee, but Cincinnati. They keep doing it to themselves. They can't finish drives. They take the pedal off the metal. They do stupid penalties. In that Cincinnati game last year, Chris Jones in the pass rush was getting there. But then for some reason, Spags decided to bring pressure all afternoon and have Jamar Chase one-on-one. You can't do that. So it's annoying that they keep, kind of doing it to themselves. But there's a positive out of this game. This Chiefs defense is playing well. And Nick Bolton, second-year linebacker out of Missouri, 2 sacks, another 2 tackles for loss, I believe. He's having a whale of a season so far. And even look what they did against the Cardinals week 1, where they pretty much only gave up 7 points. I like the trend that this defense is going. And if they can keep getting better each week in and week out, Frank Clark had a sack last week. Karlaftis had some more pressure. I like where this team is going. Need to figure out the running game, and they just need to score in the red zone. And that'll come, but stop being stupid. Stop muffing punts. Stop missing kicks. Score in the red zone. Things will be just fine.
Do you think it's where the Chiefs almost try to be too cute in the red zone, where they just call a regular play and just go? I think so. Because I'm looking at the rushing yards, and they had 23 rushes for 58 yards. It's hard to win any game, no matter who you have at quarterback, averaging 2.5 yards a rush. What do you? And Andy Reid has talked about how he wants to commit more to the run game this year, but so far we haven't seen it. We haven't seen the improvement on it. Where do you think that comes from? The Chiefs, how they improve on their run game?
I think they need to dial up more plays where we know it is a run. Because if you look at 65% of their rushes they're out of the shotgun, where Patrick, he gets it and he's going to go 90 degrees to the left and he's going to hand it to Clyde. Or they might be in like kind of some version of the pistol. But these offensive linemen still have this notion in the back of their head, shoot, Patrick might pull this and throw it if he likes this coverage that the secondary is playing. So then the offensive linemen, they're not in their mindset of driving and moving this guy 5 yards down the field. Kind of like I was telling you with Iowa earlier, when they sit back and they say, this is my guy, I need to move him from point A to point B, that's when their offense is moving. I think the Chiefs, they're a little hesitant on that because they don't want to get an illegal man downfield penalty where they can't get as much push in the running game because they don't know when Patrick is going to pull it and throw it. So I think in their play calls, Andy just needs to be more decisive and say, hey, guess what? This is a running play, guys. Go forward. Because when you look at this offensive line, I like it. Orlando Brown at left tackle, Joe Tooney, left guard, one of the better guards in the NFL. Creed Humphrey was the best center in football last year, and he's a 2-time heavyweight state champion in high school or in Oklahoma. That's saying something. Trey Smith is a good right guard. Wiley got hurt last week at right tackle, so that's kind of a bummer. But they need to let these guys go forward, where they know Patrick's not going to pull it. We're just going to run the ball.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll see. They got another tough test this week with a lot more question marks. But we'll before we shift over to week 4 and the upcoming games, we're gonna talk Cowboys Giants. Cowboys are 2-1 somehow. Even without Dak Prescott, they beat the Giants 23-16. Ugly first half. A lot of CeeDee Lamb had a huge drop. There was Noah Brown got assaulted with no flag, but it is what it is. But the defense for Dallas is they're
legit.
Yeah. Oh, man, I saw Dez tweet Tony Romo. Just imagine if we had this defense when we were playing, which would have been scary. And this defense is winning them games. They're keeping them in it. Making Cooper Rush's job way easier. They've been efficient with the run game. Cooper Rush was efficient on Monday. He was 21 of 31 for 215 on the touchdown. Tony Pollard ran for 105. Zeke had 73. I thought it was rookie Zeke when he had that 27-yard toss. Like, I don't know where that came from. But the key is they just haven't beat themselves, which they've been prone to do in previous years, where Cooper Rush has managed the game. He hasn't made those big mistakes that you often see a backup quarterback do. He's played efficient. He's hit receivers. He's moved the sticks. They've been able to get some touchdowns in the red zone. And when he's been called upon to make plays, Cooper Rush has delivered. And as long as they keep doing this, their schedule, they got Washington this week, then the Rams. But if their defense keeps playing the way they're playing, I'm okay with Dak sitting on the bench and waiting until he's 100%, because there's no need to rush the guy back with the way the defense is playing. They're getting turnovers. They're getting to the quarterback. They're making the offensive line. They're going to force an offensive line coach to get fired the way their D-line is playing. And DeMarcus Lawrence has shown up. 3 sacks on Monday night. I'm still cautious because Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore are on the coaching staff, but right now I'm fairly starting to believe a little bit more in the Cowboys. But this was going to be a tough game, and Danny Dimes, delivered dimes to the other teams. He turned the ball over, in clutch moments. He moves to 0-9 in primetime games.
Is Dallas better with Cooper Rush?
I think they are.
They might be.
Literally.
I think they are.
They honestly.
The thing is I don't think when it comes to if they want, because their goal isn't to win the division. They want to make it to the Super. I don't think you can do that with Cooper Rush. Can you do that with Dak? I don't know either. But right now, Cooper Rush is playing better than Dak has. And Cooper Rush is doing exactly what they've asked him to do. I love Dak, but there's times too where he's not very accurate, which is why I don't want him to rush back, because when you have an injury on the thumb of your throwing hand, you're not going to magically throw the ball better.
William, when I watch this team play, they seem to have more energy, more pizzazz, and they play more complementary football as a team when Cooper Rush is in there. So,
yep.
To your point, tell Dak to take his time back, and who knows if they can mess around and win some games. I'm not saying that Cooper's a starter for the rest of the year, but until the wagons kind of fall off, let him keep rolling with this team, because Cooper just doesn't turn it over. He's never going to put his defense in a bad spot. He understands that incompletion's okay, and every drive should end with a kick, extra point, field goal, or a punt, and you win a lot of games. You win a lot of games like that.
Yeah. So we'll I guess we'll move over to previewing week 4 in the NFL. Well, I guess we'll stick with the Cowboys. They play the Commanders 11 o'clock Mountain Time on Fox. That is Dallas is a 3-point favorite traveling out to DC. I expect Dallas, this game sets up nicely for them. I expect them to be able to run the ball on a awful Washington defense.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can stay in Carson Wentz's face, he's going to make a mistake and turn the ball over. So I like this matchup. There's no reason why Dallas shouldn't win this game.
Well, then also, the last week, the Eagles have 9 sacks on Carson Wentz. Dallas's pass rush is better than Philadelphia's pass rush. I'm not saying Dallas is going to get 10 sacks, but they should be in Carson's face all day. They should be making him uncomfortable. And like you said just 2 seconds ago, Carson's going to throw it to the other team. Something bad's going to happen. He's going to set Dallas up with a short field. So I feel comfortable with Dallas winning this game by, I'd say, at least 10 points. Just because I don't trust Washington and I don't trust Carson to not totally mess this thing up.
How is Washington's defense such trash with all the freaking draft picks they've taken on that defensive line?
They're just not as good as they haven't developed them.
Well, and is Chase Young still out, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
So that he's kind of the key cog to that defense.
Yeah, Chase Young.
Didn't Jonathan Allen get nicked up in Indy too?
I believe so.
Yeah, well, and Jonathan Allen hasn't been as good as what we thought he was going to be either.
No, he hasn't. And even, Darian Payne, he hasn't been the player that everyone thought he was going to be, because after all these first round picks, you're thinking Washington, they're building this team right. Well, they're trying, but they're
missing.
not playing.
Yeah.
They're not playing as well as Dallas's defensive line has been. And, nice to see, Dylan, like you said, DeMarcus Lawrence have a day on Monday night, because that was my biggest criticism on Dallas this year. When is DeMarcus going to play like the contract he's given? And so far this year, he seems hungry. Jerry probably had an uncomfortable conversation with him and said, hey, if you don't, put your head on straight, you're not going to be on this team next year. So as long as this pass rush keeps going the way they're doing and Dallas can keep people in front of them and Trayvon Diggs is not jumping on balls, good things will happen. Like I said, I think they should win Sunday by 10 points.
Yeah, well, and it looks like, so I'm looking here on NBC Sports Washington. It says that he's actually, Chase Young is actually on IR, so he's not even eligible to return until week 5. So next week he'll be back. It sounds like. So we'll move over. I guess we'll just actually go across the pond, because that's who the Vikings play the Saints over in London. That's a 7:30 Mountain Time kickoff on NFL Network. Vikings 2.5-point favorites, and they are. Ethan, I'm guessing you're a little bit nervous because this is the first time the Vikings are playing in London without the Queen alive. So R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth. Is that something you're nervous about?
Well, hold on.
No,
that was ridiculous, because this is the first time any NFL game's going on without the Queen. It's just you made a horrible joke there. Come on now.
No, it was not a horrible joke. It's a real thing.
Well, yeah, but you could have said it for the Saints.
When was the last time? I don't know remember the last time the Saints played. I remember the last time the Vikings played there. It was when I was a freshman in college. They played the Steelers in London.
They played the Browns there in 2017. If you don't,
the Saints did. It was before that.
Oh no, the Vikings did. The Vikings.
Vikings. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. They're 2-0. The Vikings are undefeated while Queen Elizabeth was alive. This is the first time they're going over to London and she hasn't been alive.
You can say that about any NFL team.
There's been teams that have lost in London since the when the Queen was alive. The Browns have, the Steelers have, the Jaguars we all know have.
Bears, I believe.
This is ridiculous.
Man, just have some respect for the royal family. Jeez, unbelievable. This isn't your team. This isn't your team. Let's let Ethan talk, okay? Ethan, the floor is yours. I'm sorry.
She was the only reason we didn't win by more in those games. She was the reason we were holding us back. So she was paying the officials. It's pretty obvious to keep the Steelers and Browns in the game. So we should win by 20 plus on Sunday.
Okay, so you're saying without the Queen, the Vikings are going to win by 20 on Sunday, right?
I think the defense is good. Our secondary kind of sucks. So I mean, Chris Olave might go for 150, but that's if Jameis Winston's ribs make it across the pond with him. Who knows? They're so cracked right now. I don't know what the hell theirs is back.
Did I hear a rumor Andy Dalton might be playing?
Yeah, I have heard that as well.
The redheaded Rocket might make an appearance in Ireland, or not Ireland, wherever the fuck they're playing. I don't know. But Is it who's the redheaded son? He might be very proud.
Ed Sheeran?
The Prince.
Harry.
Prince Harry?
Yeah, he'll be ecstatic. Another redhead getting across the pond.
What's funny is they kicked him out of the royal family, I think.
No.
I know why. What did he do?
His wife is kind of a bitch, from what I've gathered. And
liked her, so
Jameis said he plans to play on Sunday, according to
what
ESPN.
comes goes, the devil bit back on the queen for yelling at her.
Could be.
You know how many secrets she took to that grave? God, that would have been amazing.
A lot of people with that level of power have taken a lot of secrets to the grave.
But no, the Vikings win, probably not by 20, but I'll say by 9.
Okay.
Well, because I think you got to think this: the Saints' offense has not been good this year, and I mean, is Jameis going to turn it over 3 times this week? I mean,
If he plays.
I don't know if I can trust him.
Yeah.
It
sounds like he's going to play, but I mean, I would blitz the hell out of him, get pressure on him, keep hitting him, and make him uncomfortable, make his day just terrible.
Make sure that ball comes out quick and make him uncomfortable.
Because he's gonna, if you keep getting pressure on him, he's gonna turn it over. He's gonna give you a free one.
Oh, absolutely. But, and the Saints offense has not been good this year to start off. And what gives me any confidence that they're going to fix it on a week when they got to travel 6 different time zones and play in a different continent. So, like you said, just blitz the hell out of them, make them feel uncomfortable, and he's going to give you 1 or 2 freebies.
Surprisingly, the Saints almost had 400 yards a game, actually, which is kind of crazy to think about. Maybe not as bad, just like it's Jameis. He throws to the other team. He's a black Carson Wentz.
You're not wrong.
Jameis is, as much as we dog on, the guy is intentionally and unintentionally funny though. Like when he says some things, like he doesn't realize, like a lot of pain, but feel good. But
never forget when he jumped on the table in the Union. Let's be real. Greatest moment in sports.
That's such and we have some breaking news here on the podcast. Aaron Judge
don't talk about them on TV. No, we don't talk about
Roger Maris with took the go-ahead home run. So there that is. That's enough baseball talk. And we'll move.
Nobody caught it, so it's years.
It's Chiefs Bucks, the Sunday night game. We're not sure where that game was going to be played. Grant was actually going to be down there. I'm surprised. I thought he was going to try to go surf in a hurricane just to say he's done it, because Florida man Grant.
Mm-hmm.
That's something he would do. But Chiefs are a 1-point favorite. We're not really sure what's going to happen with this game. They said there's going to be a decision by Friday. But how we feeling going into this game? I don't know I'll let you talk while I look and see what the status is of some of the injuries on the Bucks.
Well, like I said, as of right now, from what I know, feeling cautiously optimistic about this game, just because the Bucks they might not have some of their guys. No Julio, no Chris Godwin, Mike Evans coming back from suspension. But even when those guys have played this year, this Bucks offense hasn't had the chemistry that you need with the Tom Brady offense, because he's such a timing-based quarterback. And also, Tom was under constant pressure last weekend all day from the Packers. I mean, everyone except Tristan Wirfs on that offensive line is getting their ass chewed out by their offensive line coach and Todd Bowles, because they can't protect the quarterback. And like what I said earlier, when the Chiefs, 5 sacks this year against the Colts, they had another 4 week 1. You cracked Justin Herbert's ribs week 2. I like the pass rush that these guys are generating. And when they're blitzing, they're one of the best blitzing teams in the NFL this year. So I think if they continue to do that, they can get home quick, make Brady get the ball out fast, and have this passing offense with not a whole lot of chemistry continue to possibly struggle throughout the week. All you got to do is make sure this. You got to double team Mike Evans. I mean, praying to the football gods, do not let L'Jarius Sneed or Watson cover him one-on-one. You got to put two people on Evans and just make Brady throw some of these other guys he just doesn't have any chemistry with. And then on the other side, facing this Bucs defense, that's not an easy task to do because they're big, and they get after the quarterback this year, so they're gonna make the Chiefs earn it. But earlier, how I was saying, if the Chiefs want to commit to the running game and they got to stop doing these RPOs, this week might not be that team you do that against, because you look at Green Bay's first two drives when they went down and they scored, it was a lot of good RPO action. And you were schematically getting guys open because Tampa Bay loves to play man coverage. So just, hopefully, Andy can put some stuff like that together and figure it out. But the big thing is can you keep Patrick upright? If you keep him upright, I like your chances in this game. And if you don't, and you let Shaq Barrett and those two young linebackers and Devin White and Levante David come, it could be a long, long day, and it could be a low scoring game in Tampa and or in Minneapolis here, wherever this game is being played in.
Yeah, well, and I have the injury report. It looks like Russell Gage was the limited participant. Chris Godwin was limited. Hicks was limited. Or no, he was a DNP.
He was out. I think he's out for a couple of weeks.
Okay. And then Julio, which Sean Payton was saying on the Herd on Monday, just said that for Julio's sake, you could just put him as questionable for the rest of his career. He practiced limited. And then Donovan Smith was also a limited participant. So we'll see. It's the first day back of the week. So maybe that trends in the right way for Tampa, which makes this game much better and a really good Sunday night game. We'll see. But yeah, Tom Brady is great. He is when he doesn't have anybody to throw to or nobody to block for him. He looked like Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 55, where just nowhere to go. And he's not as, believe it or not, he's not the athlete Pat Mahomes is.
And then also, one thing, I'll be interested to see if the Bucs do this because they're two good drives they had against the Packers. They went fast. They went up tempo. They didn't give the Packers a lot of time to communicate and switch and, change personnel. Over the years, the one thing, and this is what the Chargers do really well, which always gives the Chiefs trouble. They always go fast. I'm not saying they don't do a no huddle, but when they huddle, it's very quick. They're in and out. They don't change personnel because on the Chiefs defense, they have a lot of communication. Nick Bolton's got to talk to a lot of people up front. Juan Thornhill in the back. He's got to get everyone lined up. The communication is key. So I'll be intrigued to see if the Bucs maybe want to go a little faster again so the Chiefs aren't totally set. So then they can try to get some easy yards because Tampa is, like, as I said, they're struggling this year on offense. So if they maybe go a little faster, keep it simple, have, Tom call plays at the line of scrimmage where the Chiefs can't substitute, that might be a disaster for the Chiefs and a good thing for the Bucs to try to win this game.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game to watch anytime Mahomes and Brady play each other. It's going to be a battle and a classic. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully everybody down in Florida stays safe. I know, Grant, you're very disappointed you weren't able to go to this game, but that would have been a fun one to watch in person for sure. But safety
never
first.
Say
right?
never. He might be able to go up here.
Yeah, exactly. And like I told Caleb and Courtney down there, as you're sad you can't go to the game. The health and well-being of them and their kids and everyone else down in Florida matters a lot more. Like I said, there's going to be more football games. The NCAA Frozen Four this year is in Tampa. We've talked about maybe going down to see that. Some good college hockey action. It's cold in Minnesota, believe it or not, guys. November to April, it's cold. So you can always get on a plane ticket, go down and hang out with those guys and go to a Lightning game and enjoy the downtown Tampa River walk whenever, there's not under 6 feet of water. So better safe than sorry, so we can, meet up and do something again.
Yeah, well, and Tampa is a very fun place. I got to go down there a couple of years ago when the Vikings played the Bucks, and we had some fun in Ybor City.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll move back over to college. Week 5 preview. We'll start. Purdue takes on Minnesota. Game is at Williams or Huntington Bank Stadium.
We're playing in the basketball arena, Ethan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that game kicks off at 10
Smoking.
a.m. on ESPN2. Minnesota's a 12.5-point favorite. Ethan, how are we feeling about Purdue? I know Purdue's offense probably scares you a little bit, but I think Purdue's defense isn't very good, and Minnesota should be able to the ball keep going in a positive trajectory. So, how you feeling about the Boilermakers?
I think the Charlie Jones revenge tour comes to a pretty screeching halt this game. I don't think he's going to have his normal 200 some freaking receiving yards. It seems like a game since going to Purdue from Iowa. But I think the Gophers roll. I'm trying to say here, their run defense is solid. Purdue's they're decent. It's like 3 to 3.5 yards a carry they give up, so pretty good. But also, I don't think they've really played a team outside of Penn State that can consistently run the football. So I don't think they've been super tested yet. And even then, Penn State's running game wasn't what it is now.
Yeah,
they were first game of the year. They got close to the same running game they have currently. So I think we'll be able to run the ball. Opens up the play action. That's what Tanner really thrives off of. The RPO, hit the deep shots, hit the second window slants. But I say Gophers win 40-14. I'll give up 2 scores this game.
Oh,
okay.
That's a homecoming blowout.
And it is homecoming at the bank, huh?
They give up their first touchdown in the first half this year.
Okay.
Well, all good things must come to an end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll move over.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a rivalry. You can see a little bit of the tension between Grant and I this week. Iowa plays Michigan, big noon kickoff game of the week.
You're a Clemson fan. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm getting into this here. Chill out. And Grant is already rattled. He's already shook. Michigan's going to go into Kinnick. And I understand that Kinnick is where top 5 teams go to die. Michigan's coach, Harbaugh, knows about this. He was a player in 1985 when it was 1-2 and Iowa came out ahead. They kicked the game-winning field goal. But Grant is so scared of Michigan right now. He doesn't even want to wear his team colors with pride. He's got a Clemson. Are you kidding me, Grant? Are you that worried about Michigan?
No. If I'm honest, I was golfing before the podcast, and this Clemson pullover is my go-to when it gets a little chilly outside. And then I got home from golf, put a pizza in the oven, and left the Clemson polo on.
That's the story you're sticking to. But I know I give Grant a little bit of a hard time here, but I know just as well as anybody how tough of a game this is going to be. This is going to be the best team Michigan's going to face thus far. I'm not worried if Michigan just can see JJ. This is going to be the best defense JJ McCarthy has faced. Just needs to avoid the turnover because Iowa, I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa doesn't try to pressure him early. I feel like because where Maryland had successes when they weren't blitzing McCarthy, where they were sitting back in zone coverage and trying to bait him into a bad throw. I think if JJ is able to avoid that and just move the sticks, take what they give him, and see this is a learning step for him. If he's able to do that, I don't think Michigan has too much of a problem with it. I think as long as they don't avoid the big turnover and play sound on defense, I feel pretty confident going into this game.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's like you said, Dylan. That's kind of the Iowa special. You're going to sit back and they're going to play in that zone. They're going to play the cover 3, the cover 4, and they're going to make you anticipate throws. And at one point, a receiver will be open, and then by the time you throw it, he won't be open because there will be a defender coming down from his safety position to pick the ball off because he reads the quarterback's eyes. So that's kind of what makes this Iowa defense tough in that aspect, where everything you see is not what it is. And they again, like I said earlier, they want to make you earn it. If you go down and get a touchdown, sure, it's going to suck, but they're going to make sure you got to do it 10 plays, 12 plays, 14 plays with that. And, for Iowa to maybe pull off the upset, like what Ethan said earlier, they're probably going to have at least 2 turnovers and 1 defensive touchdown. And then Torrey Taylor's going to have to continue to make Michigan just score on long possessions. Punts inside
and
the
they're
20.
going to have more than 1 catch by wide receivers.
That's correct. Yeah, you're not going to beat Michigan with 1 catch by a wide receiver. So it's going to be ugly, and that they're just going to have to do a lot of the small things excellent. Because Michigan is they're a dang good football team, and they can score points in bunches, which Iowa cannot do.
Yeah, well, and Michigan, when we started the show, it was Michigan was a 10.5-point favorite. That line, now that I'm looking at it, is they are an 11-point favorite. The total for the game is 42. I expect a lot of field goals in this game. I don't expect Michigan or Iowa to go for it because I think they both understand, especially on Michigan's side. I think Michigan will take the 3 points because they know points are going to be limited. And I think if Michigan's able to, if they get to 20 points, 17, 20 points, I think that's enough to win this game. Because I don't see the explosiveness out of Iowa. I think if they can keep Petrus in the pocket, and you talked about it, Grant, he's awful in the pocket. And this is when I might just be throwing a little shade here, but Iowa is looking for their first touchdown against Michigan in 10 quarters because they played.
This ain't the offense.
And so last year in the Big Ten title game, Michigan held them to 3. And then in 2019, when Iowa traveled to Michigan Stadium, Michigan won 10-3. The last time Iowa scored a touchdown was in 2016 in the night game at Kinnick, where Ethan was a student working.
And yeah, it was
that was the only reason Iowa won is because I was there and I had Hawkeye gear on. That will not be happening. So therefore, Michigan wins.
Which I will not be surprised when that happens.
Oh, come on, Grant. You don't want to have a bet on this one?
No, because I'm a realistic and I watch football.
Oh, you are no fun.
And I know who.
Oh, come on.
Fan.
What are we betting on? Come on, let's go. Let the drum roll. What are we betting on?
Me, I'm not betting on anyone. If I bet,
come on.
No, you have to put a Michigan shirt. You have to put a Michigan shirt on if they win next podcast.
Well, I don't have a Michigan shirt. That's the problem.
Oh, you're gonna get.
Yeah, you're staying here. I mean, there's plenty of malls around Minneapolis. I'm sure there's a Michigan shirt to find.
Oh God, yeah. You can just drive down to Shields and Eden Prairie, and they're gonna have a Michigan football shirt. I bet.
No, you can just go to the Mall of America, see what happens. You get a T-shirt and you get a bullet. You get both. You get the best of both worlds.
A T-shirt and a what?
And a bullet. You get the best of both worlds.
Oh, there we go.
Jeez. Ethan is aggressive tonight. Wow. But
yeah,
we'll move over. Grant, you have curveball of the week. Take her away.
So, as you mentioned earlier today, Dylan, Mahomes and Brady are playing off this Sunday. And that's one of the better quarterback matchups we've seen in the last, couple of years here in the NFL. So I guess I'm wondering, guys, I'm going to go back through all of, sports history. If you could go back and look at 2 rivals to play each other in any sport, who would you want to see play? Would you want to see, Ali Frazier, Bird play Magic, MJ, the Pistons? You get what I'm saying? Kind of old classic rivalry between 2 people. Who do you want to see play? Where you just know it's going to be just iconic.
I like how our curveball of the weeks have also shifted to sports related topics as well. But it's fine.
Mine next week is not. So we're
Okay.
good.
All right. Well,
This
so
is
let's
tough.
see here. Oh man. Since I've watched Showtime, Winning Time, the HBO documentary on the Lakers when Jerry Buss bought them, and I've read the book, Jeff Pearlman's book. I think Bird and Magic, and I've watched the 30 for 30 on that.
Mhm.
I think I would love to go back and watch those because those two teams hated each other's guts, and they were just battles back and forth. I think it would have to be Bird and Magic, or who else? I know football related. I'm trying to think, but David Carr and Jamarcus Russell.
Oh, that's awful.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, man. God, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're not really rivals, but the Twins and Braves World Series, because that series they hated each other. Like, yeah,
Oh,
the Ron Gant thing.
yeah.
He
One of
was
the best World
obviously
Series of
out.
all time.
I don't know why this is even being discussed anymore, but I think that would be an amazing thing to go back and just get to see. You got Puckett up against the plexi, the walk-off homer to win it. I mean, you have all kinds of stuff in that series. That'd be pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, that would be one that I want to go back in time and watch. That is, well, it's easily one of the best World Series of all time. And my dad isn't a huge baseball guy, but you bring up that series, that you'll get him to talk about baseball, because every time, like on the anniversary of Game 7, as I send him that, and he'll always respond in all caps, "Best World Series ever."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible.
You know, for me, it's a little different here, because I'm not going to say I'm a fan by this sport by any means. But if you were to go over to, like, Wimbledon, or see the French Open and see Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer face off against each other, just going back and forth for, like, 5 cents for a major title, that would be just kind of so cool to see, and see how passionate those European fans are, for tennis, when both of them have over 20 Grand Slam titles. Just to see those guys go back and forth, and see how hard it is to hit a tennis ball when someone's serving it at 110 miles an hour. I don't think that's given enough credit for how impressive that sport is. So just to see those two 20-time champions go back and forth, that'd be kind of fun to see in a sport that I'm, not a fan of by any means.
Yeah.
Even like a Sampras and Agassi battle, like back in like the 90s.
Yeah.
90s.
Or another one too would be Elway Marino. I think that would be a good one to watch. I know there wasn't a lot of high stakes of those in those games, but they were in the same draft class. I don't know how often they played in the playoffs, or even if they played in the playoffs at all, but I mean, those are two of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Well, also, guys, one rivalry we're forgetting about was the early 90s San Francisco Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
All those NFC title games, the Hall of Famers on each roster, the coaches, the players. The catch, but especially, in the 90s there, how one player swung things for 2 years when Dion went to San Francisco in 94, and then he left to go to Dallas in 95. How that was essentially the Super Bowl. Seeing those two teams go at it would be really fun to see too.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's all we got this week. So we'll talk to you next week. Thank you guys for listening.